Well, good morning. Officially, we can say happy holidays, right? Because it is that season. Yeah, wonderful. Welcome to Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you all had a wonderful past few days. My name's Cassie Dakan, and I'll be leading the service today. And the title of our presentation, the presentation this morning, is "What Has Brought Light into Your Life?" And kind of thinking more recently, I'm curious how many of you are ready to tell us what has brought life into your life? Show of hands. Show of hands. Show of more hands. Show of yet more hands. Okay. Well, it's important for me to know because as we get to that part of the service, we want to make sure we have enough time for everyone. So I saw at least 7 or 8 hands come up, and that's great. So wonderful. I'll be looking forward to that, and we'll be kind of spontaneous about that. There's no particular order you have to come up in. So wonderful. Good to know. So we light this chalice this morning in solidarity with Unitarian Universalists all over the world, and with these words. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back. Okay. So when I was thinking about framing this service, I just landed on the idea, of course, that seems rather obvious that we're all storytellers, and we do often have or feel the freedom and the impulse, the inclination to stand up in this space, in this place, and tell each other like what's going on in our lives. And I think that's very, very special, very special. Okay, so now you got me crying. All right, so a bit more framing. So a few years back, I read Mary Catherine Bateson's book, Composing a Life. Now, Bateson died in 2021. She was born in 1939, and she was the daughter of anthropologists Gregory Bateson and Margaret Mead. While she found her own professional path, she did follow in her parents' footsteps, but she did carve out quite a bit of new territory in linguistics. So her essay in a collection called Sacred Stories synthesizes some of her main points in composing a life that resonate for us in this moment. So to the point, she emphasizes the ways in which we compose our own versions of our life, and they can be multiple. And that's first what we tell ourselves, and then what we perhaps gradually or eventually tell other people. Stories we use as a lens for interpreting our experience, and, as I said, even composing multiple versions of our life story. She says that access to these multiple versions of life gives us freedom. We can own our memories, and in these versions of our stories, we have the chance to make some creative choices. Now, this doesn't mean that we're lying or unnecessarily elaborating, but there is something to how our life story changes throughout our life. And her point in this book is how we go with that, how we accept that. So, not only is our story changing, but as our story is a little bit more malleable, right? We get a chance to look at our life from different perspectives, right? So, for example, here are some of her thoughts. Your story is not static or fixed, nor is it as simple as true or false. We can kind of put that out of our minds. A story is also a matter of emphasis and context. So how and when and where are you delivering this story? You know, are you giving this story to someone or to the world? This is an important one, and she says this is one of the most powerful things that people seem to take from her book is that a story can be continuous, which we seem to like and value, or can be discontinuous, which also has its usefulness and utility. Life does not go in a straight line. It just doesn't, right? Continuity and discontinuity are very different, but they do have their purposes. Bateson goes on to say that the most important effect of her book was to help people claim the discontinuity as positive and to interpret change as continuity, right? Everything changes all the time. Sometimes it's difficult to recognize how life situations link to each other, but for the most part, they eventually do. And consider also the advantages and the creative potential of having these multiple interpretations and choosing from them as it fits time and place and situation and where you are in your life. Finally, holding continuity and discontinuity simultaneously, one is not better than the other, gives you the advantage in coping, gives you an advantage in coping with your life, with your own life, finding balance and finding grace. Ultimately, seeing the whole story, the big picture, and its meaning is the project, and it's the path we travel. My minutes of storytelling related to finding light and various forms of enlightenment is made continuous under the idea of keeping it real. I'm stretching the timeline a bit for context, going back to late 2023 when I was finding my bliss, as Joseph Campbell puts it, which he actually defines as what are you crazy enthusiastic about, right? What are you just can't wait to dive into, right? So finding your bliss. He caught a lot of flack for that, I guess. Maybe it was too woo-woo, but it works for me. So it was 2023, late 2023, and I was finding my bliss, volunteering in the Caribbean when my health crashed in December, and I came back to the US, sadly and suddenly. 2024 was an all too real year of too many doctors and tests to figure out what was wrong. No one thing was the problem warranting any treatment. So I muddled through the overall mystery, and though confused and depleted, found help and comfort in friends, my granddaughter, long hikes with the dog, and essentially 4 healers. 2 were medical doctors who listened, a naturopath, and an acupuncturist. There was also the relief, and I call the magic of a lot of yoga. There is truly something all too real about becoming so intimate with your own body and when it's not working. But it's a blessing in the long run, or it has been for me. By the end of 2024 and into this year, 2025, I've been stronger, more confident, and living with an expanded sense of joy and curiosity, which brings me to the light of 2 experiences in my life in the past year. By the end of 2024, I was together enough to step back into this community at Beacon and some previously familiar roles. This place, you, Unitarian Universalism, keep it real for me, and are a steadying force. There is abundant light here for which I am grateful. And last December, I stepped into my first Al-Anon meeting, long overdue, given my circumstances and patterns. I've been inspired by honesty, support, and courage of that space and a group of humans who are as genuine as they come. I find that my bliss is expanded here and there, and I can count on being enlightened by the genuineness of the people and purpose who gather together with each other and help each other. So, namaste. So now it's your turn. I remember your hands going up. Oh. So you have the option. Please, as you're ready to share, it's a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. As you're ready to share, you can come up here or you can stay there, and I'll bring you the microphone. And in no particular order, let's do this.
Keep it real. What brings me bliss or joy uh, started in my childhood. And I don't know what it was exactly, but it's like being out in nature and experiencing everything out there as a shared existence, like that what comes through my eyes comes through everybody's eyes. What receives, it's like what do we all have in common? Kind of consciousness, awareness, and nothing we can put our finger on, right? So it's unnameable, but it's all one shared existence. And that's it. And that brings me joy.
I'm Pete. To piggyback off of that, a long time ago, well, 2 years ago, a long time ago, whatever. 2 years ago, no, I was really struggling with school. I was really, really struggling with school. Um, and I don't know if any of you remember Andres, but Andres and Alyssa had just graduated, and I felt really lonely. And like I said, school was really tough. So I forced myself to walk around campus. Um, and when I walked around campus, I found joy through nature. And if I can find it, um, I wrote a poem about it. And now, whenever I am feeling sad or in a dark place, I just read this poem that I wrote to remind myself that the sun will come out tomorrow. That's what my friend and I always tell each other. Hard exam, don't worry, the sun will come out tomorrow. It'll be okay. But this is my poem. Doesn't have a title, but how ignorant of me to ignore the beauty of the earth. The clouds infused with the sun's light, molded like clay by the wind's energy, casually drifting away. The trees prepping their branches full of color and vibrancy, soon to wave at the people passing by. The decaying bronze skeletons of flowers revitalizing the place they once grew. The birds singing coloratura interrupted by the squeals of the goggy. The laughter of people. I am happy the sun came out today.
Thank you, Pete. I'm Colleen, and I'm going to try to put my best storytelling hat on because these stories really were fantastical. So I have two stories of when my brother and I were little. We had an older sister. We have an older sister. I'm not sure what she was doing during these times, but my brother and I were 2 years apart in age, And we grew up on a steady diet of watching Indiana Jones and Star Wars every summer, where you could get 5 movies for 5 days for $5. One movie, $1 one day. Um, and reading books like The Cay and The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle leads one to play as if they were those heroes or heroines. Um, so we had a treehouse, a lovely treehouse built by my dad and my maternal grandfather. And one of the things we always played there was Hurricane. Um, and we were continuously prepping for a hurricane. So a problem, a dire problem. And we would run around and stressed out that the hurricane was coming and we had to make food and store provisions. And so one of us would go down to what we called the mud pile and we would make the food, lots of mud. And we would store stuff up in the treehouse. And then the hurricane would come and it'd be blowing and we'd be yelling and maybe like parts of our bodies would fly out the sides of the, and we'd, run into the tree and we'd throw ropes down. And I don't ever remember how that ended, how the hurricane story ended, but it was something we did regularly, playing hurricane. And that just reminds me of, banding together. You're the hero of your own story and, kind of survival and sticking up for surviving. Now, if you remember that I said we watched a lot of Indiana Jones, I mean, a lot of Indiana Jones. We also had 2 big willow trees in the front of our house, weeping willows. And so weeping willows, if their branches fall off, or if you weren't supposed to do this, according to my mom and dad, you took a branch off, but if you got a freshly dropped off branch and you could whip it. And so my brother and I had whip camp where we were the best, most knowledgeable whippers. And we taught people how to whip. And we had foes. They were the high schoolers. The high school was right across the street. We never saw the high schooler. All of this took place at our school bus stop. So we would go out to the bus stop. It was just my brother and I, little brother and I, and we would grab these branches and we'd be out there. I'm doing my class. I'm teaching the other people how to stand up for what's right. And in our mind, the high schoolers were, I don't know, jaded, something that we had to rail against. So we had Hurricane and we had Whip Camp, and we played these games over and over. And I can't help but think how much maybe that prepared me to work with other people, to believe in yourself, and to stand up for what's right, whether it's imagined or real. Yeah, that's my story. Stories.
Sure. All right. I'm going to go. Yeah. I'll work my way back and forth. Okay. Yeah, come on. No, you're in. Okay, introduce yourself.
Oh, hold it close, hold it right so that people can hear me. Of course, nature is always what feeds probably almost everybody, if not everybody in this room. And I've always gone on these great hikes with Paul, who is really good at doing them. And I always thought that was something that you had to kind of go out of your way to do, because that's how I'd always experienced it. But then just 2 days ago, I just hadn't walked for a while. I've had a lot of trouble with my teeth. And I went for a walk, and I just walked 4 blocks from my house and climbed the closest thing to a hill that I have. And I came back, and lo and behold, I was in the same high that I have been in when I went on the great walks with Paul. So you don't really have to do that much. You just have to remember to do it.
Thanks, Marianne.
Hi. So my name's Ryan, wife Renee. We've been here for about 6 weeks. We moved back to Flagstaff about 8 months ago from San Francisco, moving there for work, and we never found community there. And this feels really, really great to like find that community. We have good friends. We had a great Friendsgiving. Um, Flagstaff is a special place, and it feels really good to just kind of find that. And, we're nature therapy folks ourselves, but kind of searching for that other bit that we can't quite define. Mm, But it feels really good to be here. So thank you.
Oh, I'm Anne. What brings me joy is watching little kids play together and invent their own stuff and have fun. When I was a kid, we just sort of traveled around the neighborhood in this little group, and you'd go to one person's house and another person's house, and the mothers were stay at home. And when my kids were small, I was so glad that um, I lived on this little street where I met all the neighbors, and there were other kids on the street, and they would all band together and go from one house to another house. And it just brought back all those happy feelings from my youth to see my kids doing the same thing. And so, yeah, now I'm waiting for grandkids.
Saw some other hands come up before. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Drew, and mine's all written out here. What brought me light in this past year were precious moments with other people. And I've got 6 bullet points. The first one is our 18-month-old grandson saying my name and smiling at me during Zoom meetings. The second is getting together with longtime friends to share memories of our many years together. Third is watching young ones running around Beacon, being comfortable in our midst. Fourth is the coveted long kitchen hug from Steve Zeldis while we're waiting to share a meal together at home. Observing all the passionate interactions of local people during our travels in southern Italy this fall was another. And finally, all the bright new faces at Beacon, adding your ideas and your voices for the betterment of our congregation and of our world. And I especially want to make a shout out to Lori McMillan for her writers group, to Mary Walker for her dulcimer tutelage, and to Mimi and Mark for having inspiring food gatherings for all of us. So I can't wait to see what wonders light up my life in the coming year.
My name is David. I have a lot to be joyful for. I've been spending a lot of time journaling and thinking about my life. I retired this summer, and so have more time to do that. But I was just thinking during this holiday, John and I have a tradition that we started with my mother. She would come and we would cook dinner, and then we would have a puzzle, and we would puzzle all evening. And that reminded me of things that I've passed on to our daughters that are just dumb, that are from my mother. And I won't go into those, but I wrote a little note to Sophie yesterday, and I included a greeting to her that was honey pie. And then I had to write, my mom used to say that, it's dumb, I know, but maybe that will travel with her through her life. And that gave me joy to think about my mother and to realize that maybe sweetness isn't so dumb.
Teresa, and also known as Gigi now, which is what was brought me a lot of joy this year and last year. So Gigi stands for great grandma, and it's my new name now when we go back to the Midwest. So that just playing with my great grandson Sebastian, also known as Bash. He just it was just so much fun, and we've seen him enough that he remembers me, so which is really fun. And I just usually spend several hours just playing on the floor and running around and getting into the little tent and all the different things that you have. And we have a new great granddaughter this year. And her name is Evie, and she was born on the same day as Sebastian's birthday, which is kind of crazy. So, but the strange things about this is that this year we also adopted two cats who have really brought a lot of joy to our life. And it didn't occur to me for a while that one of the cats' name it came with was Gigi. And so now I'm afraid that somebody's going to get really confused. We're talking about Gigi, especially if they come to visit us. But the cats are slightly handicapped, and so we take care of them a lot. And they've just been so wonderful. We didn't realize we needed that, I think, until we adopted them. And they're the sweetest little things. So that has brought a lot of joy. Thanks, Gigi. I love that.
I don't know if I can say this right, but there's nothing that has continued to be a source of joy for me throughout my life, but there has always been joy throughout my life. It just changes all the time. I've had a lot of joy with my first wife, a lot of joy raising kids, a lot of joy working in the military, working with military people. Throughout my life, I've found joy, and right now, I have tremendous joy in my wife, Teresa, Gigi, and she brings a lot of joy in my life and has ever since for the last few decades now, so 3 decades now or so. See, I'm always afraid I'll forget the anniversary date, but right now, though, I'm getting a lot of joy in being in a community here at Beacon, as we have recovered over the years from a lot of different issues, COVID and other things, and seeing seeing us on the part where we're now strong, growing, and everything is really a big source of joy for me.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. If you'd like to do the jazz hands or do a little clapping for everybody who, who shared with us. Thanks. We don't really need to say anything more.